I don't think I'll actually do one of these, to be fair. Do large captions, closed captions, because we want to be able to see the thing. So this is Dear Esther. It's a walking simulator, for lack of a better word. It's what most people call it. This is obviously the souped up edition for PS4, so it's going to look a bit better than the original. But yeah, I just felt like doing one of these. Depending on how long this one takes, I'll probably do the Rapture one as well after the fact. Anyway. Yeah, we've only got 3 areas, haven't we? Yeah. We don't want the director's commentary. That's what I'm here for.
Dear Esther, the morning after I was washed ashore, salt in my ears, sand in my mouth, and the waves always at my ankles, I felt as though everything had conspired to this one last shipwreck. I remembered nothing but water, stones in my belly and my shoes, threatening to drag me under to where only the most listless of creatures swim.
Well then. Did I walk over the water here? Am I some sort of... Oh no, there's a boat, that'll do. I think there's collectibles to find as well. There you go. You know what would have been easier? Make a way to get me back up here without having to do that. That's a zoom. That's pretty much all these buttons do. Yeah, all they do is zoom. There's no running. Unless the game wants you to. I do believe you're supposed to infer a story through the environment. Such as here, a man took a shit and didn't clean up after himself. Or here, a man didn't clean up after himself again. Ah. A sequence. A chemical formula. Unfortunately, I don't know my chemicals. There is supposed to be much like in Everyone's Gone to the Rapture, there's meant to be a story you're meant to infer from the entire thing. So we can find the most common ones. I don't think that's just spell. Not sure if I ever... don't think I did do it. I remember doing it once before, but there's What Remains of Edith Finch, which is another sort of walking simulator game. And The Disappearance, I think, of Ethan... it's like Ethan Hawke then. I can't remember what it was. Those two are a bit different. Those actually have gameplay elements to them. Whereas these ones don't. This is just... walk, 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 walk.
There was once talk of a wind farm out here, away from the rage and the intolerance of the masses. The sea, they said, is too rough for the turbines to stand. They clearly never came here to experience the becalming for themselves. Personally, I would have supported it. turbines would be a fitting contemporary refuge for a hermit. The revolution and the permanence.
I don't think what that's meant to mean.
Dear Esther, I found myself to be as featureless as this ocean, as shallow and unoccupied as this bay, a listless wreck without identification. My rocks are these
trying to do a
bones,
Laurence
and a
Olivier
careful
impression.
fence to keep the precipice at bay.
Fuck all
Shot
in
through
there.
me caves, my forehead a mount. This aerial will transmit into me so. All overexposed, the nervous system, where Donnelly's boots and yours and mine still trample. I will carry a torch for you. I will leave it at the foot of my headstone. You will need it for the tunnels that carry me under.
Sunshines and rainbows then. Oh, we are walking across the beach and it's fuck all to see 'cause it's a beach. I mean, there's this expanse of sand, the wind blowing these badly rendered flues.
The mount is clearly the focal point of this landscape. It almost appears so well placed as to be artificial. I find myself easily slipping into the delusional state of ascribing purpose, deliberate motive to everything here. Was this island formed during the moment of impact? When we were torn loose from our moorings, and the seatbelts cut motorway lanes into our chests and shoulders, did it first break surface then? When someone had died or was dying, or was so ill they gave up what little hope they could sacrifice, they cut parallel lines into the cliff, exposing the white chalk beneath. You could see them from the mainland or the fishing boats, and know to send aid or impose a cordon of protection.
Like ghosts
Wait
in
a
the distance.
generation until whatever pestilence stalked the cliff paths died along with its hosts. My lines are just for this: to keep any would-be rescuers at bay. The infection is not simply of the flesh.
I will say this is based on a real place, and this place is beautiful.
They were God-fearing people, those shepherds. There was no love in the relationship. Donnelly tells me that they had one Bible that was passed around in strict rotation. It was stolen by a visiting monk in 1776, 2 years before the island was abandoned altogether. In the interim, I wonder, did they assign chapter and verse to the stones and grasses? marking the geography with a superimposed significance, that they could actually walk the Bible and inhabit its contradictions.
This is the stone where Jesus died, and this is the stone where Joseph lied. And this is the stone where everyone is happy in the love of God. Diddly 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 death.
Dear Esther, I met Paul. I made my own little pilgrimage. My Damascus, a small semi-detached on the outskirts of Wolverhampton. We drank coffee in his kitchen and tried to connect to one another. Although he knew I hadn't come in search of an apology, reason or retribution, he still spiraled in panic, thrown high and lucid by his own dented bonnet. Responsibility had made him old. Like us, he'd already passed beyond any conceivable boundary of life.
I want to see the little henge. Not sure if the wind's meant to be guiding you to where you're meant to go. It would be nice if there was a run button. Do 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 do.
Dear Esther, I have now driven the stretch of the M5 between Exeter and Bristol over 21 times. But although I have all the reports and all the witnesses, and have cross-referenced them within a millimetre using my Ordnance Survey maps, I simply cannot find the location. You'd think there would be marks to serve as some evidence. It's somewhere between the turn-off for Sanford and the welcome brake services. But although I can always see it in my rear-view mirror, I have as yet been unable to pull ashore. Briefly trying to read through some theory stuff while looking through this. And I think I'm going to save it all to the end. It's only at night that this place makes any sluggish effort at life. You can see the buoy and the aerial. I've been taking to sleeping through the day in an attempt to resurrect myself. I can feel the last days drawing upon me. There's little point now in continuation. There must be something new to find here. some nook or some cranny that offers a perspective worth clinging to. I've burnt my bridges. I've sunk my boats and watched them go to water.
All interpretive meaning. And that's the entire point. It's kind of the idea of what the developers do. If you listen to the documentary, the commentary track after you play the game, they do kind of say things like, the entire point is you're meant to experience. It's like what some other games do, where they say the story you infer or you make is the one you get from your experiences. How you experience the game. So if you basically, there's things that you'll miss, and it depends if you look at them or not. At least from a writing standpoint, it's kind of clever, or at least you can understand how hard it is to do.
There must be a hole in the bottom of the boat. How else could new hermits have arrived? I had kidney stones, and you visited me in the hospital. After the operation, when I was still half submerged in anesthetic, your outline and your speech both blurred. Now my stones have grown into an island and made their escape.
Through my
You have
butthole.
been rendered opaque by the car of a drunk.
Key phrase. There's a few key phrases that you can pick up that can kind of give you an idea about what's happened or what's going on. Oh, look at that.
I've begun my ascent on the green slope of the western side. I've looked deep into the mountain from the shaft and understood that I must go up and then find the way under. I will stash the last vestiges of my civilization in the stone walls and work deeper from there.
Surgical
I'm
tools.
drawn by the aerial and the cliff
Here.
edge. There is some form of rebirth waiting for me there.
Remember, he was just talking about kidney stones.
The bothy was constructed originally in the early 1700s. By then, shepherding had formalized into a career. The first habitual shepherd was a man called Jakobsen, from a lineage of migratory Scandinavians. He was not considered a man of breeding by the mainlanders. He came here every summer whilst building the bothy, hoping eventually that becoming a man of property would secure him a wife and a lineage. Donnelly records that it did not work. He caught some disease from his malcontented goats and died 2 years after completing it. There was no one to carve white lines into the cliff for him, either.
Strange how it doesn't look like it's quite part of the wall. Almost as if it's not meant to be there. Or almost as if that design changes every time you play the game.
My heart is landfill. These false dawns waking into the still never light. I sweat for you in the small hours and wrap my blankets into a mass. I've always heard the waves break on these lost shores, always the gulls forgotten. I can lift this bottle to my ear, and all there ever is for me is this Hebridean music.
I don't know if I've ever managed to randomly spotlight ghostly figures anywhere.
He left his body to the medical school and was duly opened out for a crowd of students 21 days after his passing. The report is included in my edition of his book. The syphilis had torn through his guts like a drunk driver, scrambling his organs like eggs on a plate. But enough definition remained for a cursory examination, and, as I suspected, they found clear evidence of kidney stones. He's likely to have spent the last years of his life in considerable pain. Perhaps this is the root of his laudanum habit. Although its use makes him an unreliable witness, I find myself increasingly drawn into his orbit.
Yeah, it's kind of like he's... as I'm reading this thing here, it's like... This is obviously a review they're doing. They're kind of trying to input their version of it. Obviously, in the end, they kind of say what it actually means doesn't matter. Or is what he's saying true, or is it all made up? Because it kind of infers that he's mixing in bits of his life, bits of other people's lives, into what he's talking about.
From here, this last time, I have understood there is no turning back. The torch is failing along with my resolve. And hear the singing of the sea creatures from the passages above me, and they are promising the return of the gulls.
Do love me a good cave, I'll give you that. Do love me a good cave.
There is no other direction, no other exit from this motorway. Speeding past this junction, I saw you waiting at the roadside, a one last drink in your trembled hands.
Music does its part. I'm gonna give it this. I have to admit, this is my favourite sort of shot of the entire. Like, look at this. Like, imagine, like, yeah, this is a virtual environment. Imagine if you actually walked into this. Centuries of water just carving its way through. Go down or not. Let me just briefly put some headphones on. I must say there's any YouTube videos about the thing. Surely someone's tried to decipher this. I'm about to do the same for Rapture.
In my final dream, I sat at peace with Jakobsen and watched the moon over the Sandford Junction. Goats grazed on the hard shoulder, a world gone to weed and redemption. He showed me his fever scars, and I mine, between each shoulder the nascency of flight.
When I was coming round from the operation, I remember the light they shone in my eyes to check for pupil contraction. It was like staring up at a moonlit sky from the bottom of a well. People moved at the summit, but I could not tell if you were one of them.
The moon.
The moon over the Sanford Junction, headlights in your retinas. Donnelly drove a grey hatchback without a bottom. All the creatures of the tarmac rose to sing to him. All manner of symbols crudely scrawled across the cliff face of my unrest. My life reduced to an electrical diagram. All my gulls have taken flight. They will no longer roost on these outcrops. The lure of the moon over the Sanford Junction is too strong. We shall begin to assemble our own version of the North Shore. We will scrawl in dead languages and electrical diagrams and hide them away for future theologians to muse and mumble over. We will send a letter to Esther Donnelly and demand her answer. We will mix the paint with ashes and tarmac and the glow from our infections. We will paint a moon over the Sanford Junction and blue lights falling like stars along the hard shoulder. There were chemical diagrams on the posters on the walls on the waiting room. It seemed appropriate at the time. Still life abstractions of the processes which had already begun to break down your nerves and your muscles in the next room. I crammed diazepam as I once crammed for chemistry examinations. I am revising my options for a long and happy life. From here, I can see my armada. I collected all the letters I'd ever meant to send to you, if I'd have ever made it to the mainland, but had instead collected at the bottom of my rucksack and I spread them out along the lost beach. Then I took each and every one, and I folded them into boats. I folded you into the creases, and then, as the sun was setting, I set the fleet to sail. Shattered into 21 pieces, I consigned you to the Atlantic, and I sat here until I'd watched all of you sink. The pain in my leg sent me blind for a few minutes as I struggled up the cliff path. I swallowed another handful of painkillers, and now I feel almost lucid. The island around me has retreated to a hazed distance, whilst the moon appears to have descended into my palm to guide me. I can see a thick black line of infection reaching for my heart from the waistband of my trousers. Through the fugue, it's all the world like the path I have cut from the lowlands towards the aerial.
Is that one over there? Oh god, that's one of them. Oh, he's going to disappear as soon as I get out. Oh no, he's going to be gone, isn't he? Oh no. Is that a fence post or is that a ghost? Because I'm looking at the all the ghost things you can spot. I may decide to play the game again at some point. And by some point, I mean I'm going to play it straight away.
I've begun my voyage in a paper boat without a bottom. I will fly to the moon in it. I've been folded along a crease in time, a weakness in the sheet of life. Now you've settled on the opposite side of the paper to me. I can see your traces in the ink that soaks through the fiber, the pulped vegetation. When we become waterlogged and the cage disintegrates, we will intermingle. When this paper aeroplane leaves the cliff edge and casts parallel vapor trails in the dark, we will come together.
Oh god, there was someone here. Now they're not. Fucking ghosts.
If only Donnelly had experienced this, he would have realized he was his own shoreline, as am I. Just as I am becoming this island, so he became his syphilis, retreating into the burning synapses, the stones, the infection. Returning to my car afterwards, hands still shaking, and a head split open by the impact. Goodbye to tearful aunts and traumatized uncles. Goodbye to the phenomenal. Goodbye to the tangible. Goodbye Wolverhampton. Goodbye Sanford. Goodbye Cromer. Goodbye Damascus. This cliff path is slippery in the dew. It is hard to climb with such an infection. I must carve out the bad flesh and sling it from the aerial. I must become infused with the very air.
A gull perched on a spent bonnet, sideways, whilst the sirens fell through the middle distance and the metal moaned in grief about us. I'm about this night in walking, old bread and gull bones, old Donnelly at the bar gripping his drink, old Esther walking with our children, old Paul as ever, old Paul. He shakes and he shivers and he turns off his lights alone.
Run out of places to
You're
climb.
gone by the time I get up there.
I will abandon this body and take to the air. Dear Esther,
maybe I will, because he won't give me the choice.
My belongings, my books, this death certificate. Mine will be written all across this island. Who was Jakobsen? Who remembers him? Donnelly has written of him, but who was Donnelly? Who remembers him? I have painted, carved, hewn, scored into this space all that I could draw from him. There will be another to these shores to remember me. I will rise from the ocean like an island without bottom, come together like a stone, become an aerial, a beacon, that they will not forget you. We've always been drawn here. One day the gulls will return and nest in our bones and our history. I will look to my left and see Esther Donnelly flying beside me. I will look to my right and see Paul Jakobsen flying beside me. They will leave white lines carved into the air to reach the mainland, where help will be sent.
But until then, I'm going to yeet myself off here. So, the few theories I managed to find, I think, what is it? There's the idea that obviously this is you throwing yourself off the tower. Whether you did that or not in your actual life is a different thing, but it's the idea that you're a ghost, which is A, why you can see all these other ghosts, and B, why you're seeing all these weird things. And it's basically you perpetually haunting this island, because this island had quite significance to you and Esther. Because what it is Esther was your wife. She died in a car crash. Paul was the drunk driver who apparently couldn't live with the guilt even if you forgave him, and he killed himself. Jakobsen was the first colonist who I say colonist, someone who tried to go to this island and create a life and ended up dying. Donnelly was someone who wrote a book about that, and you and Esther loved the book, so you travelled to the island like frequently. So when she died, you struggled to find meaning about the entire, your life and the entire accident. So you kept going back to the island, or you spent time on the island trying to figure it out. And I think in the end you killed yourself, I don't know, or you just die. And this is supposed to be your reliving as a ghost. It's either that or these are your this is the last things you do when you decide to kill yourself and join Esther. They tend to be the big ones.
Come back.
That's the general idea anyway. That's what I've been hearing for most of them. There's not really that many. Why do you suppose this game's kind of been forgotten, really? Like, it kind of meant a big thing when it came out, but as of late, I don't know, maybe it's because the Chinese room haven't done anything. I think the last thing they did was that Amnesia spin-off. Let's see what games they did. In 2018 became a subsidiary of Sumo Digital. So Dear Esther this is their breakout kind of game. Then they have Korsacovia, whatever that is. Oh gee. Oh. Amnesia Machine for Pigs. Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. Little Orpheus. Oh, this is their most recent one. Oh, it only got ported recently. Oh, I might have to get it. According to this, is meant to be a homage to Ray Harryhausen movies and serials like Flash Gordon. Oh. Oh, it had Russian elements. So naturally it's been... that's why I've not heard of it. But obviously because of what's happening recently in the news, they've postponed it. But it was meant to come out a few days ago. Well, it's already out on iOS. But for consoles and PC, it was meant to come out... I think it's on the store or something, but it probably won't be. I don't know, it's a shame if it's not out, because I'd like to see it. Sounds interesting. Yeah, I don't mind these games so much. I'm just going to briefly see if we can find one of the ghosts that's in here, allegedly. Because it does spook a ghost.
Dear Esther, the gulls do not land here anymore. I've noticed that this year they seem to shun the place. Maybe it's the depletion of the fishing stock driving them away. Perhaps it's me. When he first landed here, Donnelly wrote that the herds were sickly, and their shepherds the lowest of the miserable classes that populate these Hebridean islands. 300 years later, even they have departed.
Oh, maybe not. There's supposed to be one up there. Not with the music, does it? Oh well, worth a try. Anyway, I'm going to leave it here, so thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one, which will probably be in half an hour or so, maybe, because I might as well get the Rapture done with. So thanks for watching, see you then, bye bye.